record on the computer. Yeah. Hey.
Pippa.
Hey, we're going live, baby.
Hey, baby.
Sit right here. Sit right here. We're going to meet Cisco. See, they're in the barn.
Oh, I see the barn. Yeah.
Hey, everyone.
Hey.
This is Polly and Auntie. We are live here in Boston and in Michigan. We are ready to meet Pepper's friend, Cisco the horse, and his mommy, Jill Marie Haas, a friend and colleague of mine out in Michigan. And here we are. I'm Polly. This is, of course, Dr. Pepper and his Auntie Florence. And this is Feathers, Fur, and Scales, our wonderful stories of lives of our pets, emotional support animals, therapy animals, the roles that they have in our family life, therapy life, their purpose, their work that they do. And so we are here, is our mission, Auntie Pepper and mine, to really reduce and eradicate abuse, cruelty, abandonment of animals. And so, you know, our purpose here is sharing these stories because, you know, we know sometimes when you get caught up in the emotional excitement of, you know, thinking, oh, I want to get a kitty for Christmas or a puppy for Christmas, or my child wants a horse or a parrot. Next week we have a parrot interview. His name is George in the UK. We're going to meet him and his daddy Rob. And it's some of the unexpected things that when we make that commitment to bring a fur child, a scale child, or a feather child into the home, there's some things that sometimes we don't think about because we're just so caught up in the emotion of either wanting to adopt or rescue, or just sort of feel like, oh my gosh, you know, having these kids are so wonderful. Hey, Pep, look, it's Jill. Hi,
Cisco.
Hey there, all the way in Michigan. Oh, Cisco, you are a handsome boy.
Hold on. So just so you know, this is new equipment. He knows the phone and the tripod, but he doesn't know the lights. But the tripod is newer than the one I've been using. So he is checking it out a little bit. Horses can get a little spooky.
Yeah. Hey, so Jill, tell us, you know, I know you have a lot of fur children in your household, but Cisco's really very special. How did Cisco come into your life? What was the impetus around that?
So Cisco, in fact, I'm going to put him in his stall while I talk to you real quick.
Yeah.
Is Cisco?
Oh, he has a blanket to keep warm, Auntie. Do you notice that? Yes. Just like how Pep wears a coat, Cisco has a coat to keep warm.
Yes, he needs that. Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna turn a little bit, so he might join us back there.
Yeah, we can see his coat.
Yeah, there you go.
I noticed that he wears a coat also to keep warm. So does Pep out when we're outside walking and playing.
Yes, and he's actually quite muddy. He's been rolling in his coat. So you can see he's got sawdust on him. He must have been rolling in here. So yeah, he's looking interesting. So Cisco, you asked me how he came into my life, and Cisco actually was gifted to me. I had actually always wanted a horse, and the year that he came to me, I'll say that he found me, he rescued me. So people say, oh, you have a rescue horse, right? I'm like, well, I'm really the one that was rescued. But Cisco it belonged to somebody else, and I was at a barn training on the ground, learning groundwork with how to work with horses, and the trainers said, everything you learn on the ground transfers to the saddle. So for a month, I had been taking lessons, and Cisco showed up with his owner to get more lessons and sync up, and it wasn't working out for them. 3 months later, because I had worked quite a bit with him in my own lessons on the ground, she, with the direction and guidance of the barn owners and the trainers, said Jill would be a really good match. If you're going to get rid of him, you might want to consider Jill. So
What
without
was
getting
the
wrong.
impetus for them to want to get rid of him? It just wasn't a match anymore? Were there just a change in family structure? Hey, Cisco.
You heard him. You heard him.
Yeah, it wasn't a good match. That's what I understand. And I think she had only had him a year and a half, and maybe he was a little more energy for her than
Yes.
she could handle.
Okay. And that's kind of, the whole, you weren't, when I was doing the introduction is, we never really kind of realize sometimes when some of our well-intended ideas of bringing a fur child, a scale child, a feather child, an equine child into our life, our ability to manage it, we have really good intentions, and it sounds just so amazing, and I'm doing a great thing and I really love it. And then, the day in, the day out, the behavior, the expense.
The expense, especially with horses, the expense.
Yeah. So I didn't mean to interrupt you. So anyway, so it wasn't really a fit for the original owners. So now they're in a quandary, right? And trying to find a new home, essentially, for Cisco.
Yeah, and I guess
here.
Oh, I'm sorry. What was that?
And you appear on the scenes.
Yeah, the owner, I guess what I was told when he was offered to me is that if I didn't take him, she was going to sell him.
Oh.
So,
that's a lot. Hey, Cisco. Thank God she took me.
The horses are talking out there. It's kind of close to dinner time, so they're all, they of course know he's in here. So he's, hey, we're not going to eat my hand. I was trying to give you that piece of hay. Sorry. So yeah, they were going to sell him, and I had to take some time to think about it because it is a huge commitment. I had never had a horse before, and I really didn't feel like I knew what I was truly getting myself into. But I was surrounded by people that knew what to do, and he was going to be safe there, boarding at a price I could afford. And, I would continue to get training, so I would learn how to handle him and be a good horse owner. And since then, I've learned a lot, and you would not even believe how much in 3.5 years that you learn about owning a horse. It is so different than owning a cat or a dog.
Yeah, which I know that you do have both.
Yes.
So you're saying that for Cisco, it's not like you can bring him into your house and he can snuggle up in your bed and go to sleep with you like your cats and dogs do. You had mentioned that, you have to really consider boarding because you don't have a barn where you live.
Right. I don't have property that would support it right now, but that's the goal, is down the road to have my own space that I could have him on my property. And I think about that, and I know it's a lot of work, so I would like it to be where I could afford to pay someone to be there, or a couple people to take care of him as well as other horses that I have. Yeah. So right now it's a matter of finding the right place, because there's a ton of places you could board. Usually if you're in a horse community or a place that's in the country, there's usually a lot of stables or barns, and there are different levels of elite status or not. This is not elite, and that's how I like it. And the price ranges can vary. So just depends on where you are, and also what kind of things you want done for your horse when it's being taken care of by someone else.
Right. So do you go out to the barn every day to visit Cisco, or how does that work?
Right now, because it's colder, and especially when it's really snowy, it's just not usually worth it to come out here. The walkway from the pasture to here into the indoor arena can be slippery and icy, and it's not worth the risk. Hi, Pepper.
He's giving you his tail.
So I probably get out here about twice a week or 3 times a week if I don't have clients, and then if I have clients coming out, then I'm out here a little bit more. Just depends. So in the warmer months, I am out here a lot more, and it's easier to come here in the warmer months to just do a quick, drop in, say hi, give them a few carrots, or walk them around the arena. Takes a little bit more, as when you have to bundle up and put on your heavy clothes and your boots and layers, and and
And
clean
so
off.
how does he get exercise? Does he get exercise every day? Is that like part of the boarding service?
I don't do that, no. But you can do that, and he's not. So I don't show him. He's not like a specific workhorse where he might need that kind of a thing. Hey.
Okay.
But some people do. There's like horse grooms, they call them, and they will do training and work your horse for you. And people do that. They can hire them in to come into whatever barn you're at. And I don't think I need that.
And what are some of the big considerations that you have to take under your own belt in being a horse mommy to make sure that Cisco is well and healthy and having a thriving life?
Well, a big part of it is knowing the people who are taking care of him, that they're doing what they say they do, and trusting them, because sometimes it's hard to put your trust into someone. You can imagine when you're taking your child to daycare, you hope that it's good, and you don't always know until you're there for a while and you start to get a feel for how that's operating. So similar kind of thing. Some people don't really care so much as what happens with their animal, or their pet. I'm not going to say everybody says that, but some people are like, it's just a horse, No, it doesn't need anything. It's fine. So the considerations I do, as far as, I want to make sure he's in a place that has shelter from the outdoor elements. So he is pasture boarded. He doesn't come in every night.
Okay.
He does get brought in to eat, and I think that's why he's a little antsy right now. And it's close, like I said, to dinner time, and he doesn't have food in there. There's a little hay in there, but he's dismissing it for something else. But he does get supplements that I pay for in addition to his grain that he eats. So he's brought in twice a day for meals, and that brings up the cost of the board a little bit. And then I, as far as for me, because I like to ride, I want a place indoor and outdoor that I can do that.
Okay.
Is that what you were looking for?
Yeah, that's kind of like what I'm looking for. So if people are thinking, my son, my daughter, they would really like to have a horse, what are those considerations, and what is that match, that is the breaking point, like for you, none of us want to think about what happens if or when our animals get ill or something happens. Maybe there's a change in our lifestyle, maybe we have to move. What then provisions do you have to consider for Cisco? Would he go with you, not go with you? And I know you can't imagine all of the scenarios, but sometimes I know in a situation, we had a family friend who abutted a neighbor who had llamas and horses, and their lifestyle was such that they were jet setters, and so they just had the animals really as trophies, and so they became emaciated. They were neglected, and my friend, who was just an animal lover, really kind of started initiating to take care of the two llamas, Peanut Butter and Jelly, and the horse. And they built a barn on their property and brought them in. I mean, it was a huge undertaking and huge dollars, but the people who initially had the animals, their lifestyle, didn't really match with the animals that they had on, that they were bringing in. Like you said, that some people just kind of consider them an animal or a trophy, and not really the day in, day out of the animal, what the needs are. And so,
right.
When you think about provisions for you and Cisco and your other animals, I know we've started this conversation, and even for Pep, God forbid, what would happen if something happened to me? Where would he go? Or who would take him, or would he end up being euthanized or taken to a shelter, or that sort of thing.
I'm gonna get him some hay. I'll be right back.
Sure. All right.
Sorry.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Cisco has been very communicative with us. It is his dinner time, and he is talking to his mommy Jill to say, "Hey,
Yeah.
where is the hay?" And we're having this discussion around, how Cisco came. Hi, Cisco. How Cisco came to be with Jill, and how she adopted him out of a situation that just didn't really work for the other owners. And sometimes this happens. Our neighbor Maria with her dog Pujo, it wasn't a real good match for the high-rise building that she was living in, and her physical abilities. She had Pujo for a year. He was a standard poodle, but he was a lot of dog for her.
Yes.
And Pujo they ended up finding a really great home for him out in New Jersey in the country, where he could really thrive. And Maria ended up getting a smaller dog named Nanjo, who is really girlfriend, and that is such a better match. But these things happen, and you're not really anticipating it. But a lot of people could abandon their animal or put it back at the shelter, have it euthanized when things aren't a match.
Right.
Jill, Auntie and I were just talking about our neighbor, actually Pepper's best friend, his girlfriend Nanjo. How she came to be was that her mommy, her first dog was a standard poodle, and she had him for about a year, but it wasn't a match. And it created problems in the building, problems for her physically, some physical disabilities. And so they had to look for a different home for Pujo. But it opened up the way for Pujo to have a better family match and a better environment, and for Maria to be better matched with a smaller dog. Under 20 pounds. But anyway, we were just talking about some of the things that happen. Sometimes people just abandon their animals,
Yeah, there's a horse rescue here locally, and I'm good friends with the president of it, and she has told many stories about people just letting go of their horses or just moving and leaving the horses in the pasture with no food, or maybe who knows how much food they did leave, if any.
Right. And then
terrible.
Yeah. And so, I don't know if you caught our beginning, but I know when we talked is, part of these stories are for feather fish scale stories is really to help find other options, or to think consciously about other options when things are don't work out, to eradicate abandonment, abuse, and cruelty.
Yeah, and I think when I think about that, because I wonder, why does that happen so much? And I'm sure there's a lot of shame and embarrassment around the fact that they might have to do it and they'd rather just run away. But truthfully, people, if they had a choice, if they watched this happen, they would much rather the person do something humane for the animal, because it's not humane. We know that it's not humane to let a animal starve and try to find its own way when it's been provided for so long. It's not right, in my opinion.
Right, ours either.
But there's definitely routes out there, and I think that if people just privately ask people they trust to help them find something, that people are going to be so glad that they asked. I know that the rescue locally here, Horses Haven, they've taken in so many animals for whatever reason. There's a story of someone who had cancer and they just couldn't take the care anymore, and it was on their property. Sometimes it's a seizure of complete neglect, and they take a whole herd of horses. But people, it's so much better to just be forthcoming. It's your animal. You're taking a responsibility for having it. The same responsibility lies with what you're going to do with it next if you can't continue to care for it as intended, as Cisco agrees.
Yeah, Cisco, absolutely. And Pepper too. We've kind of made provisions in our will, and God forbid something happened to me and Rob, that there would be provisions for Pepper, because I see with a lot of my patients, they get ill, they get an injury, and just like you said, God forbid you come down with a disease in which you're physically incapable to care for your animal. it becomes a big struggle, and something to think about, because our animals don't just live 1 or 2 years. They can live several decades.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like I know those parrots; they can live long time.
Long time. Yeah, next week we're going to talk with Rob about that a little bit, because when we were doing interview in preparation, he was saying, yeah, George is probably going to live to about the same age as us.
Yeah.
Hey, but I wanted to ask you, you were sharing with me there was something that happened about a year ago with you and Cisco. Cisco got really ill, and there was a lot of turmoil and anxiety and overwhelm with that. And I know, God forbid, if anything happened to her, I would be just devastated.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's the first time I had dealt with it, and it's not uncommon for horses to have colic, but he came down with that, and he had been kind of maybe showing signs that it was going to happen, but I'm new to this, and I was asking for opinions and advice and things, and I finally did end up having to get the veterinarian to come out at 6 a.m. on a winter snowy morning and be out here to deal with that. But it is scary. It's very stressful, and then I didn't know if it was going to resolve itself after he did what he needed to do, which was kind of fleshing him out, and it takes a lot to get a horse to comply with things. You don't just go and anesthetize a horse. He did get sedated, and he was able to clear some things out of his bowels to help move things, but then he flushed some fluid down, and he was fine after that. But that first week after that was just like, what's going to happen? How, are we out of the woods? What could this mean? Because there is the option of surgery, but it's thousands of dollars.
Oh, yeah. And we've had friends who just recently, their pup, a little bit younger than Pepper, in excitement because he was still a puppy, ran into a stone like a stone container garden kind of thing, and shattered his leg.
Oh gosh.
$5,000 later.
Wow, yeah.
And so just those unexpected costs of being a mommy and daddy to a fur child.
Right. Like you said, it's all unexpected. You can plan. I mean, if you have savings and you're setting that aside for your animal, that's awesome. It's not always viable. But sometimes things happen, and, sometimes people are willing to work with you. Sometimes they're not.
Cisco has a lot to say about that.
Yes. Well, one thing that I know that's got everyone stirred up out there is they took 2 horses from one pasture that neighbors where he stays and moved them to the complete other side. So things have been turned up a little bit, and it's not the norm right now. So they're feeling it and expressing. I think they're still getting used to them over there, almost as if the 2 are new horses, but they're the same horses, just in a different place.
Yeah. And so this brings us now to, Cisco is not just only your fur equine child, but he also has a very unique job. Can you explain his, the purpose that he is, his therapy work that he's doing?
Sure. So Cisco is, I do equine guided learning with him, or EGL for short, and my specialty is working with veterans. And he is special because he's a very sensitive horse, very vocal horse.
Yeah.
But he's also a great mirror, and horses just in general are great to work with because we can partner with them, and they can express to us what we're thinking, feeling, and not saying. So anywhere we're incongruent with what is going on in our lives, so like I might want to tell you, I'm feeling so happy right now, but inside I don't feel happy. Right. He'd be able to reflect that some way to us in behavior or attitude or something, and we'd be able to look at that. So it's him working with people is really special because when I paired him with people, especially the more sensitive veterans I've worked with, he really does a great job with them and he's very patient with them. And and it's like he shows up every time, and it's not like he's a circus trained animal. He doesn't do what we didn't have an agenda before the session and say, okay,
Sure.
in 10 minutes in, I want you to do this. There's nothing like that. It's like he just knows what to do. And like I said, he's very sensitive, and he's been through his own things from his past. He's had a few owners before me, so
Okay.
he probably might, there might be something there with that. And he's part Arab, so Arabs are very sensitive. He's also part saddlebred, also sensitive, a very high energy, sensitive combination.
Yeah. How do they bond? You know him, but I've been around horses just a little bit, but what is that unique relationship that you and Cisco have? And you said, he's been with several families before, and how stressful it must be, because there must be that, I know with Pep, his bonding with me, he would be utterly, just totally depressed for some time if something happened to me and he had to go to another family. How is that with horses? Or with Cisco particularly?
With horses, I mean, I'm not an expert, but in my experience with him, it took a little while for him to trust. And the biggest thing with horses is you have to earn their trust. You can't demand it. You have to earn it. And I had to earn it. Well, that works by being a leader, a trustworthy leader.
And what does that mean exactly, being a trustworthy leader? I'm not sure what that means.
So meaning that he can trust me to be out somewhere together, and I'm going to, if I'm going to be his leader, because that's what horses have, a hierarchy. So no matter where you put horses together, someone's the leader, and they have to determine who that is, and then they're okay once they determine it. And if you are with a horse, he's about, how much do you weigh? 1,200, 1,100 pounds. He can't be the leader with the two of us. That wouldn't be safe for me. But when I first met Cisco, and I had insecurities about owning a horse because it was new to me. I always wanted one, but I didn't know the first thing about having one. Thank goodness he was in a place sported, because I don't know what I would have done. Not that it would have been terrible, but it was just more stress.
Yeah.
And it probably would have affected our relationship. Who knows? It could have been even more positive. I don't know. But a lot of the training that I did with him on the ground, and getting him to hook up with me, they call it, or join up. It's said in a couple different ways, and to get him to trust me. But it took a while, because at first, I remember the very first time I met him, he was crazed. He was not happy at all. And this was before it was even a thought that he'd become my horse.
Okay.
So there's just I spent a lot of time with him, and had to learn how to be with him as a human being with a horse, and not baby him, and not be an inspirational leader with a soft but firm hand as needed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally makes sense. Because it's a little bit different than other fur children, like with cats or dogs, or fish or birds. It's a different kind of role that you have as his mom, his care provider. You have to provide his care, and also I would imagine emotional support as well. They have all of those kinds of needs. And Jill, a little bit about you. I know a little bit. You have a nursing background. Is that how you how did you come into wanting to, combine the work with Cisco and PTSD, or working with vets with post-traumatic stress syndrome? Did that come from your background?
Well, I no, actually, I'd been doing coach training off and on while I was working as a nurse, and I just knew that I wanted to do coaching, so it kind of fell into that.
Mhm.
And I would say the veteran work was an opportunity that came about a couple years ago, and it just everything unfolded from there. With the horses, it was about 4 years ago that I went to a workshop where I had an experience of my own with a horse.
Okay.
And I was like, this is it. I wanted a horse my whole life, and this is something I could add to my coaching practice. I really want a horse. Why am I waiting so long? And it was giving me like a purpose or even a better reason to have one than just to give one to myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
There's we could talk another story about all of that stuff of what's going on there, but the justification of it all. But into my life, and then the veterans came about a year and a half later, and it was all unfolded into something really awesome. And I didn't know how he would be with them or just the clients in general. I had no idea if he would like the work, because even my trainers for the EGL said, well, you never know if they're going to be into it or not. Well, he's really into it. In fact, he's so into it that when he has a client that he's working with, that if there are other horses around and they want to get involved somehow, he gives them the pin down ears and the sneer face and
Oh,
like,
wow.
get out of here, get out of here.
It's my client.
Yes, it's my client.
Mine. Oh, that's great, Jill.
So I apologize for all the noise. He has not been
I'm
this
glad
noisy
he's talkative. He's
forever.
initiating. He's got a lot to say.
He's very, very wide open throat center.
Yeah. His sixth chakra is really large. Oh, that's really wonderful. Hey, Jill, if some of our viewers are really interested in some of the work and the coaching that you are doing and integrating with Cisco, how can they get a hold of you?
Well, my email is a great way to start, and that's Jill, Jill, at jillhaas.com, and the last name is spelled so Jill at jillhaas.com.
Okay, great.
And that would be the best way to reach me. I'm also on LinkedIn. You want to find me there.
And we'll post the link underneath the video.
Okay,
with a little bit of description about, how to get a hold of you and that type of thing. Just because I think, many of our fur children, our animal children are doing a lot of different things that can benefit others to bring more joy, less stress, less anxiety in our life and happiness.
Mm-hmm.
I know with Pepper, I don't know if I had, we talked about that story.
Yes.
Auntie, why don't you share real quick with Jill your particular story with Pepper, how he changed you?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I'm happy to tell my story. When I met Pepper, I don't know, something just happened. It's like a miracle. I just turned around and looked at him, and I started to write poetry. It's like a miracle. I've written how many poems?
You've written over 4 books.
4 books.
100, and not all the poems got in the book. The best of the best.
But yes, and this past year I've written about 100, and I'm still writing. And I like call it a miracle because now I feel like I'm a poet after all these years.
That's awesome.
Years to become a poet.
That's amazing. Congratulations on opening that right up.
Thank you.
So many of your poems were directed to Pepper, and they were really about friendship, love, loss, grief, the whole human, animal, emotional spectrum.
Yes.
Right. And I think that's what spurred us into sort of this project of eradicating the abandonment, abuse, and cruelty to animals.
Yes,
so, the poems have sort of that back end learning. So Auntie prepared a couple poems. Well, one she'd written to Pepper a long time ago, and then she revamped a poem specifically for Cisco.
Yes.
Awesome.
Would you like to hear it?
I would.
Would you like to hear this?
I would like to hear this.
Let's hear this, Cisco.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to share my screen. Let me see. Where is it? right here.
I'm just going to throw something in Cisco's dish.
All right.
Yeah.
We're just getting ready here. Okay. Here we go. All right, Auntie.
Okay.
Are you ready, Jill?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Oh, fine. Cisco, it has been great to meet you. You are truly an ace and the love of your mummy's life. When you are galloping, you are a beautiful sight. You and Mummy take a ride along the hills, rivers, lakes, and beach at low tide. Cisco, you are so strong, and he is healthy, helping so many vets. He
Is no
No
average
average
pet.
absolutely.
That's awesome. He listened the whole time.
I'm so
Oh, that's
glad.
great. He recognized the tone of his name
Yes.
and that we're reading.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then Auntie is also, she didn't say, she's also an artist. So many of the poems that she wrote for Pepper came with sketches and artwork.
Yes.
So
Oh, wow.
show Jill your sketch of Maria and the horse.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, and so
Very
she'll go
pretty.
ahead and read that poem to Cisco as well.
Yes. This is for Cisco.
Okay. Cisco, are you ready?
We have one more poem for you, Cisco.
Yes. Listen, Cisco.
Come on, Cisco.
Pepper.
Come here, big guy.
Wait, he's coming.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
he's
coming.
ready.
He's
Okay.
ready. Okay, Pepper, meet my friend Maria. She is with her pony, Sophia. She wants some meat and take you for a ride. Don't worry, Mommy will be right at your side. She wants to climb the highest mountain where there is a beautiful fountain where all the lovely people live. They certainly know how to give and forgive. Isn't that what love is all about? You know what to do, Peppa. Let's all shout. Did you hear it?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Wait, so
That's
did you
awesome.
like that poem, Cisco?
I think he has a lot to say about it.
Anyway, Jill and Cisco.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say something. Normally, I can even just put him with me and he's fine. But I think with all this turmoil going on out there, I call it turmoil because that's what he's acting like it is.
Yeah. But I'm glad that we got to hear his voice.
Yeah.
Yes, a lot of it.
Jill, it's been so wonderful to share you and Cisco's story, and I hope that it will really inspire and touch others to really think about, you know, what it takes to be a horse mom and to care for not even just a horse, your dog, your cat, your bird, whatever it is, that, you know, it is a lifelong commitment to the animal, and when it isn't a fit sometimes, to be proactive, to find solutions and not leave them abandoned.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, find solutions because there are so many people out there that want to help if they only knew.
Exactly. And you know what I was thinking is, you said you had a couple horse rescue places by you. I'd like to have those links too that we can post under the video. And
oh, sure.
Yeah. And I can place them for people should they, you know, need something, a resource.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. And just remind me and I'll get those all to you.
All right.
Thanks for having us.
Bye-bye, Cisco.
Bye, Cisco. Love you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
So next week,
what do you think?
Wait, hold on. Next week, or not next week, next Tuesday, you're going to join us to meet George, our feathered parrot friend in the UK, and his daddy Rob. And they're going to talk about how they came together very unexpectedly, much like Jill and Cisco. And so some of the unpredictability about bringing a parrot home and not telling your wife. So stay tuned and for next Tuesday.
Okay.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.